When you know that you are queer, but your favorite drink is beer, that's gayish. You can bottom without stopping, but you can't stand going shopping, that's gayish. Oh, gayish, you're probably gayish. Well, life's just too short for narrow stereotypes, so it's gayish. We're also gayish. It's Gayish with Mike and Kyle.
Hello, everyone in the podcast universe. This is Gayish.
The podcast with a limp wrist until it's time to fist.
Oh, God. Wait. Yeah, okay.
That's from Jake. Thanks, Jake.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. I'm Mike Johnson.
I'm Kyle Getz.
We're here to bridge the gap between sexuality and actuality. And today we're going to talk about proud parents.
Yeah, we're going to talk about being a parent of a LGBT kid in this day and age.
Or many kids, apparently.
Or many kids.
Yeah. We're going to have some guests on to talk about being proud parents. And this episode is going to be a little weird, everybody. Enjoy. It's weird because I'm in Colombia, and we recorded this a long time ago from now when we're here today.
Yeah, we pre-recorded an episode because of your crazy travel schedule so that we actually have a week off. I still have to edit this. I don't get a week off, but no rest for the wicked.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
I don't get a week off either. I'm sure I've talked about this on the show a few times, but I'm leaving June 1st and basically not getting back until like the middle of August. There are a couple of exceptions. The only episode that we're going to record together in person in Seattle is the last weekend in June or something. It's bonkers. It's absolutely bonkers.
Are you excited about your upcoming travels? I mean, you're in the middle of it now when this airs, but...
You should see the size of my VIP-ness on Delta Airlines, Kyle. Like, it is insane.
Yeah.
I do like that part. I like being treated like a pretty princess when I get on an airplane, but I don't know that it's worth it.
When we did our tour, you were always like, boarding sections 2, and then I had to wait till it was like section 17.
Yeah. It
was like, we've boarded the dogs.
Yeah.
We've boarded the insects that will be occupying this space.
All of the dead bodies.
We've carted on the dead bodies. Yeah.
So I'm in the middle of this crazy ass travel. So this was however many weeks ago. So we're not going to do the news because I can't see into the future. Mm-hmm. Ooh, we could try to do the news.
Oh, let's predict the news.
Yeah.
Hey, news the first. Something awful happened. News the second.
Everything's bad, and
something else awful
today.
Happened.
And we don't know whether we will have had. That's a lot of linking verbs. Any new Patreon folks? We can make up some names.
Oh yeah, thanks to Schmoozle.
Yeah, Schmoozle, appreciate you.
And Kombucha? Kombucha. Thanks to Kombucha and Schmoozer. We really appreciate your patronage.
If you want ad-free episodes a day early, you can go to patreon.com/Gayish podcast.
Wow.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's never something that you've done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Join Patreon.
Okay, Kyle.
Okay, Mike.
We're doing this episode. It's Derek's fault.
Yes.
He knows these people.
Yeah.
Listens to these people. Is one of these people secretly in disguise? But no, it's really, really awesome when people are not only allies, but then also like good, supportive parents to queer kids. We've seen over and over and over and over and over and over and over again in studies that family support is like one of the best ways to prevent self-harm and suicide in queer children. And I think we should all be so lucky to have that kind of support in our lives.
Yeah. Do you feel like you had supportive parents?
As supportive as they could be, I suppose. I didn't come out until I was 30. And I know that Mom has been on a few times to talk about, like, how gay was I before coming out. But she had a gay uncle, and so that side of the family really didn't bat an eye at all. And of course, she's been super duper supportive on the show, and
everyone's mom.
Yeah, everyone's mom. And then Dad kind of struggled a little bit. I think, he was always nice to my ex, as nice to my current partner. And I think when his parents were still alive, he had some like shame about that. So even though he was supportive of me, definitely didn't want his parents to know.
Yeah.
That felt weird.
Yeah, that's hard.
But they're dead now, so everything's great.
You don't have to worry about it anymore.
And I know that your parents struggled for a minute.
My parents struggled for a little bit when I came out. We basically like talked and cried a whole bunch for like months, and then landed on the fact that my parents didn't want to know anything about that side of me, and so we would eventually grow apart and never talk again. And that's just kind of where we left it, which was like really disappointing that my parents were like okay with that being the end result. And then I remember like I would avoid talking about, like, I joined like LGBT organizations, and so when I would call my parents and chat, I would avoid giving those kinds of updates. And eventually when I got a boyfriend, I started telling my mom about my boyfriend, and she like asked questions and was acted like it was, you know, just the same, I think, as she would act if I got a girlfriend, like interested and talking to me about that. And I was like, oh wow, they've come a long way without me really realizing it. They kind of figured their shit out, I guess, behind the scenes. So yeah, now they're really supportive. My dad bought me a little Pride Lego set once, so you know, they at least give me a gay thing there. Yeah, so yeah, they've come a long way. And then also we have a gay cousin who he visits them now in their place in New York. So they get to act, and his parents aren't super supportive, so they get to act as the like cool aunt and uncle, I think. Yeah. To like ask him about his like boyfriend, or ask him about how things are going and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
And maybe, yeah, I like, are they just like slow processors? Like, do they take time to come around to surprises in general, or like, was it very specifically the gay thing, do you think?
I think it was the gay thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was that. I'm a slow processor, so maybe I got that from them. I don't know. I think it was just being gay. They just had a bias against it and didn't really know what it meant, or that it wasn't my choice, or any of that. So I think they had to come around to that. I think I had to be gay for a long time for them to accept that I was not making a choice about it, that it was just who I am, and that it wasn't going to change back. So I think they needed that time to accept that part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. It's got to be hard being a parent and having like one idea of how your kid's life is going to go, and then find out that vision is totally wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Really shatters like a lot of your hopes and dreams that you have for the future. And yeah, I guess that'd be a hard thing. I also think don't have kids if you need them to do a specific thing in order to make you happy.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
But
okay, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to have Erin and April with us to talk about their queer kids.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to take a break?
Yeah, let's take a break.
Let's have a baby.
With me. Break.
This is the part where Mike and Kyle take a break.
Are we back?
We're back.
We're back.
We're here with Erin and April, here to join us to talk about being proud parents. Thanks so much for being on.
Thanks for having us.
We're happy to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So just right out of the gate, a little bit of like information. Where are you at in the world? What are you up to? Maybe we'll start with Erin.
So I live in Idaho, and I have 3 kids. I have a 16-year-old, one who will be 15 here in a couple of weeks, and an 11-year-old. And I have a podcast. I am a dental hygienist. I am a travel planner. I have all kinds of things going on. But the kids obviously come first.
And April, how about you?
Yeah, and I live in a conservative state here in the U.S. I have 3 kids, a 19-year-old, a 15-year-old, and an 11-year-old. And I am a human resources assistant director for a public university.
Oh, okay. Great. Yeah. Well, welcome to the show.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first, let's hear a little bit about your kids. What made you decide you wanted kids, and how's the process been raising kids in the state, wherever you're at?
So I always wanted kids. I had a really great mom who was kind and fun. And I think having a mom like that made me want to be a mom like that. And so I've always wanted to have kids. It was never not a thing on my radar. I grew up in a religious household. We kind of bounced from religion to religion until I was a teenager. And at that point, we converted to the LDS faith, the Mormon religion. And from 15 until I'm 46 now, and I would say that I have not been attending the LDS church now for the past 8 or 9 years. So for a good chunk of my life, I was an active Mormon. And families are huge when it comes to that religion. That's a big part of the LDS religion, is families are forever. And you know, if you don't have a family, you kind of don't belong. And so it was just something that always was on my radar. Now that I have kids, I mean, I wouldn't trade it for the world, obviously. It's harder than I expected it to be. And not that my kids are hard. My kids, all 3 of them, are really great, fun, easygoing, kids who really are conscientious of other people, who, you know, do what they're supposed to do when it comes to school. They do what they're supposed to do when it comes to holding doors for people and being kind. But there's a lot of things, especially living, and April probably can attest to this, in a conservative state. There are a lot of things that have made this a little bit harder than I expected it to be on the emotional end of the spectrum versus the, you know, raising of children and trying to raise good humans part. That has come fairly easy. My kids are really good humans, but raising them and protecting them has been the harder part, in my experience anyway.
Yeah.
And for me, I definitely grew up imagining I would always have kids. I will say they came about organically for me. So I didn't expect to have them when I did. So I got pregnant when I was 24 years old, while I was still in my undergraduate school with my first child. And then my second child was kind of a surprise too. And my third child also. So I'm just like very like, surprise. That's like the story of my life with my kids. But that's great. I think I would say like I always say like my first kid kind of saved my life, because I was sort of going down like a wild partying path. And so he kind of came along and got me into a different place, because I also grew up with like a great mom and had a really solid role model for what that looked like. Where Erin and my stories diverge, I grew up in a very liberal faith, the Unitarian Universalist. And so that is a faith that's actually doesn't have a creed. You can believe whatever you want as long as you're not hurting anyone. They have kind of principles that are like inherent worth and dignity of every person, just really taking care of the environment and each other and caring about the democratic process. And so very liberal. And being in kind of the Midwest, which is where my state is located, there was a strong humanism part of that took over. There was a big humanist movement that happened. And so there was a lot of humanism that was in the curriculum where I grew up. And our youth leaders when I was young were really into Native American stuff. So we had a lot of Native American stuff woven into my education, kind of religious education as a young person. So I think that really played a role in how I acted as a mom, and wanting to make sure that my kids kind of had a well-rounded view of the world and could believe what they wanted to believe as they were growing up. So being very open, being very like that, the church in my town that I grew up in, the Unitarian church, was the only LGBT open and affirming church when I was younger. Now there's many more, like there are Christian churches that are open and affirming now in the town. But at the time when I was young, ours was the only one. So kind of growing up, I was already involved in being on the LGBTQ, like being an LGBTQ warrior, and like working to kind of build some movement around that. So I was already sort of kind of the perfect mom to have a trans kid. Yeah. And so that's been lucky for my child. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you mentioned your kids. Both of you did. You just said you have a trans kid. Do you have other queer kids? Or I don't want to say just, that's the wrong word, but like you have just the one, or you have any other queer kids?
So I have a trans child. My 15-year-old is a trans child. My oldest child does not appear to be queer in any way. And I don't know for sure. My youngest child's 11. So he's not really at the age where he's really making those decisions yet, but so we'll see on that. But right now I have a transgender child who's my 15-year-old.
Yeah.
And my 16-year-old identifies as straight. My son, who will be 15 here in a couple of weeks, is gay. And my 11-year-old has mentioned that she thinks she may be bi. And so I have kind of the gamut, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And so April was just talking about sort of the faith that she was raised in as being sort of liberal and affirming. That's one way to arrive at allyship. I'm curious how you arrived at being an ally, given your path.
Being a Mormon.
Yeah.
It's definitely not what we're taught. So I think it kind of goes back to me talking about how my mom was just a really good person. My mom died when I was 30, and so I've done a lot of my adulthood without her. I've done all of my parenting without her. My oldest was 10 months old when she died, and I think that she just raised me to like people. Like, she raised me to love all people, accept all people. And I think that's a fundamental idea of Christianity as a whole that people forget. They get hung up on the nuance and the rules that have been made along the way. And I'm just actually a really big fan of loving everybody. And people's lives don't impact me. I don't get to make their decisions for them. I don't get to dictate how they live their lives. I dictate how I live my life. And I need to live my life in the best way that I know how. And that means just being kind and good. So that's kind of where it started for me. And then when my son was born, my husband actually even says that he knew holding him in his arms in the delivery room. He says, I looked at him and I knew then that he was going to be different and that he was going to be something special and that he was going to teach us a lot of lessons. And, at a very young age, he was obviously, we always attributed it to him being quirky. And even still, he's very quirky. But he, was always in a dress. He was always a princess. He was always, and so my father-in-law specifically would talk about, well, you need to get that boy some guns and let him run around with a 6-shooter. And I was like, I don't actually. I'm happy with who he is. He's fine. And so things like that kind of started chipping away. There's a belief in ex-Mormons. I guess I'm an ex-Mormon. I'm still a member of the church. I just haven't been in a really long time. But there's this idea of a shelf breaking. And what it is, you have this shelf and things start to get piled on the shelf that you're like, ooh, that doesn't make sense. Or, ooh, I don't agree with that. And the more things that get piled on the shelf, the heavier the weight. And at some point that shelf breaks. And that's when you finally make your parting way. And, all of these things started happening. People started making comments about him not being boy enough and him not doing the right things, and it started to pile onto my shelf. And the more that piled onto my shelf, the further I got from that religious upbringing or religious notion that we shouldn't, that there are these rules that we have to abide by in order for some higher power to love us. So it's been a long process. I wasn't the same person when I was 20 as I am now. And it's been a long process of just realizing that the answer is just to care about people.
Erin, you mentioned that a lot of things that made you suspicious that your son may be gay, or you mentioned different in some way. When did you officially was there a coming out process, and how did that go
for him? Yeah, kind of. When he was in elementary school, he came home. I remember one specific instance. He came home and I could tell he was upset at dinner one night. And his name is Asher. And I asked him a couple of times what was going on. And he was just like, oh, nothing. And then when we were done with dinner and I had cleaned everything up, I needed to run to the store really quick. And I made an excuse to bring him. I was like, Asher, why don't you come with me? And we got in the car and I was like, okay, it's just you and me now. Can we talk? And he was like, sure. And I was like, what's going on? And he was like, oh, nothing. And I said, well, I can tell that you're down. Can you please just talk to me? And he was like, yeah. He's like, some kids at school today told me I'm gay. And I was like, are you? And he was like, no. And I was like, okay. But guess what? Had you said yes, we would be in the exact same 2 seats in this car. I would still be your mom. I would still love you. You would still be my son. You would still be Asher. I would still be Erin. And I'm like, and nothing would have changed. And he says, okay. And I said, so I just need you to understand. And that's when I started suspecting, like, okay, there's something going on here. And he's not ready to talk about it, but I feel it. And I was just like, I just need you to understand that nothing changes. Nothing changes if that's the case. And I was like, straight, gay, otherwise, nothing changes. And he was like, okay. And so then he was probably about 11 when he came to me one day and told me he needed to talk to me. And his older sister and he are very, very, very close. And so she was there with him. And I was like, what's going on? And he wouldn't talk to me. And finally I was like, why don't you write it down? It would be easier to write it down and not say it out loud. And he was like, yeah, let me go get some paper. And he ran in and I looked at my daughter and I said, do you know what it is? And she said, yeah. And she said, and so do you. And I was like, okay. And I knew exactly what it was. And at that point, he came out as bi. He told me he was bi. And then, another year down the road, we were talking about something and about him potentially having children someday. And he says, I don't think I'm going to have kids. And I was like, how come? And he's like, because I like boys. And I said, but you said you liked girls too. What if you find a cute girl and you settle down and get married? And he just kind of stared at me for a minute. And he's like, Mom, I don't like girls. And we had a moment where I was like, why though? Why didn't you tell me? I've made it very clear to you this entire time that you don't have to be anything that you're not for me. And he was like, I know, I was just scared. And so that was a process too, but there was a little bit of a coming out with him. And just recently, my in-laws are very active in the LDS church still. And just recently he came out to my mother-in-law within the last 3 or 4 months, which she knew, there's enough talk in the family that she knew, but he finally sent her a text message and just said, hey, Nana, I need to let you know I'm happy. I'm safe, but I'm gay.
How did that go over?
She told him she loves him no matter what. So
that's great.
That's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah. April, I have the same question for you. Was there a coming out process with your kid and how did that go over?
Yeah, so in our family, we have a very close family friend who, when I was young, so like when I was a teenager, this person had come out to me, who was like an adult at the time. And so I had gone through all of the feelings of like, wait, is this person the same person, even though they really are a different gender? And so I knew that like someone who changed a gender like was actually the same person. And I'd gone through all of these feelings as a 16-year-old with a close person that was close to me. And so it starts out very similar to Erin's story, that my child as a little boy loved glitter, pink, all things, like dressed up like Elsa for Halloween, even as a boy, dressed up in my bridesmaid's dress to go for superhero day at school in kindergarten, like even though they were a boy, like they just like, and when they went into a Christian preschool, like I went to the preschool and said, like, you need to know that this boy likes a lot of things that are typically girl things, and I need to make sure that you're okay with that before I'm gonna allow you to have my child in your preschool. And they were like, oh yes, we're so fine with that, like it's exploration, like okay. And so we were very into, there's no girl toys or boy toys unless if you need a penis to work a toy, then I have a problem with that toy for children. So there shouldn't be girl toys or boy toys. And there weren't at any of the preschools that my child was at. Right. And so everything was fine. So in kindergarten, she went to kindergarten as a boy, and all through preschool, when they would do like, what do you want to be when you grow up? She would say, like, when I grow up, I want to be a builder. But then at some point, like during kindergarten, it switched to like, when I grow up, I want to be a girl. And so as soon as she said that, like we said to her, like, hold on, like you don't have to wait till you grow up for that. And like, we just told her that, like, you don't have to wait for that. And so as soon as she started saying those things, like we had a doctor at the time that was like an LGBTQA, like affirming doctor, just because we wanted to make sure we had that kind of doctor. I don't know why there was only one that we could find who was a special LGBT doctor. I don't know why we had that. I mean, maybe we went out and sought her at that time, but I think we just had her. She was like in this small town, and she was like, and I don't know, she was great. So we had this doctor, we went and we talked to our doctor, and it's like, anything special we should do? And she was like, well, just, every day when Mina wakes up, like ask her, does she want to be a girl or a boy, and let her pick. And so so we tried that during the school year, but like we are chickens with our heads cut off every day during the school year trying to get to work and school, and like it is a disaster. So like almost always we would just forget to do that. And so when summer came, we're like, okay, we're gonna dedicate ourselves to this, like summer's here, we're really gonna do it. And so we really did it, and like every day she wanted to be a girl. And she would not wear khakis because she did not think girls wore khakis. And so I would take pictures of every girl I saw wearing khakis, every woman. I would take pictures and send them to her because I'm like, they seriously do. I'm telling you. And so
I'm wearing khakis right now.
Exactly. She will definitely wear more than she would only wear like dresses, leggings, like, very typical girly girl clothes. But really where the girl clothes came in, I think my husband and I were very athletic back then, and we were running a race, and she was staying with my ex-husband's and his wife. And they happened to see, like, they walked past the store and there was like this stripy dress in the window, and she really wanted it. And so like they went in and bought it for her, and like she put that dress on, and it was like the rest of the summer was dresses only. That was it. That was all. And so over that summer between kindergarten and first grade, we just transitioned from boy to girl gender. And so like that summer I like called the school, made an appointment with the principal, like went in like mama bear ready, like I'm gonna fight everyone if I have to. Like I was like, you need to get me a teacher who is experienced. I cannot have anyone fresh out of school handling this shit. Like I don't know what's gonna happen when my kid comes in, but like I will fight all the parents if they need to line up, like line me up and I'll fight them all one by one. Because I don't know, I didn't know what was gonna happen, but I felt like something was gonna happen. So they got me in with so the principal comes to meet with me, and like, here comes the counselor. God, she was the best. I swear to God, she'd been training for this her whole life. Like, trans kid at my school? Yes! Like, was so freaking excited. She like went out and bought all the books, and she like came, like she was so ready. So she was so excited to have a trans kid transitioning at her school. And they had the perfect teacher who to this day, Mina says like her favorite teacher in the entire world, who had been teaching for like, I don't know, at least 15 years maybe by this time. So this teacher was amazing. She would give me like hilarious updates about the kids, because it turns out the kids are amazing and they don't give a shit. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear in your podcast. You can delete it if I'm not.
You are for sure.
All right. Well, you said it was not. Yeah, you said something earlier that made me feel like I could. So, okay, yeah, they were great. And the kids would come in line, and she said she overheard like one of them say to Mina, like, so do you have all the like memories that Martin had, like her dead name? Like, do you have all the memories, or like, do I need to tell you, like, do you remember me from before? Like, that was all. They just wanted to know, like, do you remember when we were still friends? Or like, do I need to tell you who I am? It wasn't like worrying about like upset that you're now girl. They just wanted to know, like, do you have the memories, or do I need to fill you up to catch you up to where we are, you know?
That's really funny. The idea that maybe you forgot everything from before.
Yeah. It was amazing. And so like there was only like one or two kids throughout like the entire elementary school experience that maybe like were not 100% on board, and maybe like there was literally like twice ever where a kid said something, and none of it was like horribly mean. It was just like a slight comment, you know, like side eyes or something. Like, that person's really a boy. Like, that's literally the extent. And there was never, like, I never had to go beat anyone up. I never had to go mama bear anybody. And it was like the biggest relief of my life.
Not even other parents? Like,
no, like I was shocked. Yeah. I seriously thought that I was going to have to, living in a conservative state. I really did. Like, and I mean, again, like I said, like I work at a university, so we are in a university town. So, you know, it's like a slight bonus to.
Yeah. There's a little, a bit of a bubble there.
Yeah. But I really thought there would be something, you know. So then middle school went. I thought like middle school definitely going to go bad, because y'all, middle school sucks for all people, right? Especially trans kids.
Yeah.
So I connected up with, so thankfully, like one of the associate principals at her middle school also had a trans kid that we knew, because there was a trans group in our town, like it was like for all people, like trans, like all ages. Now, of course, my child was the youngest child at 7, and like there was no other 7-year-olds that were in this group. And so, but I had somehow met other people, like other parents who had older kids who were there, and like other trans people throughout, and it connected us with all of these trans people in this town. And so I met this person who turned out to be the assistant principal at the middle school. So she was a great resource the entire time that Mina was at middle school. And then we recently just moved to a different town, still in the conservative state, but like the only other town that's like more safer, more liberal, for her to do high school, because I do think like it's better. And especially with what's happened in the government right now, I wanted her to be somewhere where literally nobody knew that she was transgender, because I don't know what's going to happen. And I thought it will be safer for her to be somewhere where nobody knows, for her to start high school. And still, I don't know, there's still, I'm sure we can talk about that in a little bit, but we just moved here in August for her to start high school, in a place where no one knows that she's trans.
Yeah, it is. Well, yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can talk about that in a little bit. I have so many questions. But it sounds like you sort of had your village or your support structure, and maybe you have to rebuild that a little bit with the move.
Yeah, and I think, well, part of it is that the high school in the town we were in, my son, who's 19, had just gone through that high school, and it was real bad. I knew it was bad, and so I knew that I wasn't going to have the support that we'd had in the middle school and the elementary school at the high school. Yeah. So I was needing to find a place that would have the support, and I have siblings that live in the town that we moved to who also has a trans child, and had told me that this town is really good and really great with supporting trans people, and it does seem like it is really good. And the added bonus is that no one except for her family knows that she's trans. So even though the school does know, because they had me fill it out when I filled out her, like, registration paperwork. Yeah. The teachers don't even know, because I had to talk to the orchestra teacher about it when we were talking about whether or not she's going to go on this school trip. And the orchestra teacher almost fell off her stool, because you can't tell. A child who's transitioned since the age of 7 doesn't look any different than anyone else. Yeah. You can't tell that she's not a cisgender girl.
Yeah.
By looking at her. So.
Erin, I'm wondering, what does your support system and structure look like? What does your village look like?
Not that. Good for you, because that's awesome. Because I'm just sitting here thinking about how we just had a situation, which has nothing to do with anything, but we had I guess it kind of does. We had a situation just a week ago where my son noticed that somebody that he goes to school with had Elon Musk throwing a symbol as his profile picture on the school teams on their website. Wow. And my son submitted a complaint. They kind of have the system like see something, say something. And so my son submitted a complaint asking for that to be taken down. And he was called into the vice principal's office, and the vice principal explained to him that Elon was just sending his heart to everybody, and that God. Kamala has done it, and I don't know what to do, because I don't have that support system. And where you live sounds fantastic, because I also live in a conservative state, and I actually live in the purple bubble of the conservative state. But in order for us to be purple here, the red has to be really red and the blue has to be really blue. And so, as much as we are purple, we are very red. And, our administrations, in fact, our school district was just in the news a month ago for a teacher being disciplined because she had a poster up in her classroom with hands of every color and rainbows that said everyone is welcome here, and the district made her remove the sign from her classroom, and it's made national news because it's been a big deal. She's fighting back, which good for her. But so no, I don't feel like we've had that. That being said, he's pretty okay with who he is, and I think which is hard for me, I think that he just takes the brunt of the negative feedback that he gets, which is occasional. I mean, it sounds like it's probably more than what your daughter receives. He gets called names in the hallway. He which he doesn't typically tell me. Like I mentioned earlier, he and his sister are very close. She's the one who talks to me about it. And he doesn't really tell me, which concerns me. I think that I wish he would talk to me a little bit more about it just so I know where he is with his mental health. But my closest personal friends feel the same way I do about things. Aside from that, I mean, our family doesn't, and our surroundings don't. And so I don't have that same feeling that she does. I worry a lot about my son. I worry about him every day. I worry that he is going to be the one who gets targeted. If someone's going to be targeted, it's him. And like I mentioned, he's quirky. He's still quirky. He wears ascots to school. And I mean, find me another 15-year-old boy who will tie up an ascot before he heads out in the morning. So, I mean, he's a quirky kid. He stands out. And add to that, he's gay. He doesn't fit the good old boy Idaho lifestyle that is pushed so hard here. And so I don't have that support system. Now, thankfully for him, which I know we're going to talk later about stereotypes, but he's a theater kid. And so not to let's just crush the stereotype right now. No, he's a theater kid. And thankfully he has found his little group of weirdos, and my daughter's also a theater kid. And so they have a really spectacular group of friends who are really good kids who are accepting of everybody no matter what. And I'm grateful for that he has that little bubble wrap enveloping him and keeping an eye on him for me. And yeah, but other than that, no, I don't feel like there's a great support system. And I was just listening to you talking about your counselor and thinking about that story of his vice principal explaining to him how he was incorrect and how, it was not what he thought it was, which it absolutely was what he thought it was. And I wish I could find that one. And I mean, my kids' theater teachers and their theater, anybody that they're working with in the theater side of school, obviously, well, not obviously, but is a lot more accepting and a lot more aligned. But outside of that, there's not a great support system here.
How about other queer kids? Is there community that way for your son?
Yes. Yeah, there is. He's got, again, just feeding the stereotype, all these theater kids, there's a bunch of them who are queer along with him. And so, yeah, he's got that great group there. I think I was thinking more from an adult perspective. I was thinking more of the adults who, it's our job to protect these kids, right? And my kid is for sure not on the list of children to protect for some of these adults. Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of where I was coming from with support system.
April, a little bit ago, you used the word warrior to describe yourself. I'm wondering if you could say some more about that, what that means to you.
Yeah, I think I was trying to find words and words weren't coming to me. And from a very young age, LGBTQA issues have been really important to me. And I think that was my first, so in my faith, I don't know if it's really called a faith, but at the Unitarian Universalist fellowship that I grew up in, we do something called social justice. And so that's the main social justice issue that I really would work on. And that was the first march that I marched in was for gay rights and working towards that. And so I think then later in life, I was married to a Black man and worked on Black Lives Matter and things like that, and found the two communities very, very different to work within. And so that was kind of interesting to kind of work with the two different communities that were very, very different. And so, yeah, I really do think though that having that foundation in growing up, just supporting the LGBT community did just make me the perfect mom for my kid. And just having that background and knowing people, I in my high school, I was part of the first ever LGBTQ group that we had there. We started the group, right? And so I think that helped to just put me in a place that was ready to accept her. And I'm glad that I could be that mom for her. And I wish that I could be that mom for everyone else, but
Yeah.
I know not every kid gets that kind of parent, and it's it's sad. I think like when we would go, from the time that she transitioned, we went up and worked with a doctor medically on checking when she would go into puberty, and so we'd go up and meet with this doctor I think we went maybe every year until she was at the age for puberty, and then they had us go every 6 months to check whether or not she was in puberty. And that doctor, you could tell, was just like so relieved every time they were meeting with us, because she didn't have to try to convince us that it was the right thing to do to be helping your kid. And she would enjoy her sessions with us because we were just so happy to be there. And then there was like when the study came out that showed that transgender children who get to be in gender affirming families and who get their gender affirmed from a young age have the same exact mental health incidences as people who, like cisgender kids that grow up, rather than the high incidences of like suicide and negative mental health things that transgender adults have who don't get to grow up in the gender that they identify with. That was a huge turning point for her, because she actually had a study that she could show parents to say, it really helps your child to allow them to have the gender affirming care. And I definitely think we're obviously taking steps backward now with things that are happening.
A world that doesn't seem to care about facts and studies.
Yes,
right?
they're making up.
I wouldn't even,
facts, so.
and I wouldn't call it steps. I would just call it big old freaking leaps backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's it been like raising children at all, much less LGBT children, during this administration?
Oh, it's been fantastic. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, no problem.
It's hard, and it's hard because and again, which it sounds like you've got this great place. I live in the liberal bubble of Idaho, and it's still not that great a place. And so we frequently talk about where else could we go? And honestly, every time we really talk about it in depth, I feel like the answer is outside the U.S. Like, it's not here. And it's hard because we like it here. For the most part, we like it in Idaho or specifically in Boise for the most part. And I think he likes it here quite a bit, but it's just, I feel like I don't know. I don't know the answer. I don't know what to do or how to go about it, because it feels very outside of my control. And the only thing I have control over is me and what I do. And so I guess that means if it gets to the point where we have to move, right? And we have to leave. And I know, in fact, listening to you talk, we have a friend who has a transgender daughter, and they moved out of the state because she wasn't allowed to receive any kind of gender affirming care here. And very similarly, we did not know she was not born a girl. And when we found out, I about fell out of my chair, because exactly what you were saying, I would have had no idea. And I think that the media and the government has painted this very incorrect picture of what LGBTQ people in general look like. Like, they've just painted this, this very, I don't know how to explain it, but they've just painted the wrong picture on so many things. I could go on and on of what it is. And it's not. It's the little girl who, sat by us at volleyball games for years that we knew growing up, and I would never have ever thought anything different than her being a cute little dancer girl.
Yeah. The right-wing Twitter, or X, I see all the time people saying things like, you can always just tell. And no, you fucking can't. Like, that is such a horrific lie, and it perpetuates so much violence. And
it does. And it puts these kids in danger. And making comments, and that's the thing that I have the hardest time with, is these kids who walk down the hallways and call my child a slur. It encourages other children to do that, and it puts my kid's life at risk. And I don't understand how there are parents out there who have raised such assholes to think that is okay to gang up on somebody and put their actual life at risk for something that they don't understand A, and B, has no impact on them at all.
Yeah.
But then we look at the president, and he doesn't understand it either, or he acts like he doesn't. And so then that's exactly how these other people feel like they can go out and do these things.
He does not understand Photoshop. We cannot expect big things from him.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's a scary place. And I think, like, my oldest child, who's 19, you know, he's the one he's the one I have to talk off the ledge, because he's the one I think who understands it the most and is listening and is really scared about what's going to happen. His girlfriend is Latina, and definitely, like, I'm not sure that her dad was a citizen. So, you know, she's scared that she's going to get deported. And then there's my trans child who, like, in our state, we already had laws that said she couldn't, like, before Trump took office, we already had laws that said she couldn't get healthcare in the state. So we've already been traveling out of state for years to get her care. And so these laws that then came down haven't impacted us, as we already were impacted by the laws that our state had already passed. And so it's just more fear and more anxiety about, like, are we going to have to suddenly try to figure out where to move to? But other places aren't looking that much better anyway. Even other countries, like England, just passed something that says that transgender female women aren't women legally. Like, and so the whole world seems like they're losing their mind about trans people, and it's really pissing me off.
And why? Like, I sit down and I think about it, and I think, why? Like, aside from control, which is probably actually the answer, but, like, and power. What does it it has nothing to do with anybody except for one specific person and their close circle. So I just don't understand the fear and the fear mongering and the othering that goes on.
Well, I think that's what it comes down to, a fear and a lack of understanding that people have about something that most of the time doesn't impact them.
And I think, too, right now, there is especially in our country, there is an othering that is happening. And there is, if you can, I learned once upon a time that if you can create a common enemy, you can create a bond. And that's what feels like is happening, is we are finding this, I use the word we, not me. But there is a large group of people in this country who are finding an enemy. They're making enemies up so that they can rise above that other group. And have power over that other group and feel safe. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe they feel safer because they're not part of that group, because they don't have a child who is part of that group. So they don't understand it, and they feel safe if they can other that group, because it doesn't affect them. They're fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I say it on the show pretty regularly that there's this list of adjectives, right? The default in this country is a cis, white, straight, able-bodied Christian man. How many of those things can be different and you still treat that person like a human being? I think is really what it comes down to. And I hope and pray that everybody can get to a place where they're fine with the complete opposite of all six of those things and still see that person as a human that they can connect with and care about and take care of. Because it sure feels like the number of them that can be not those six things is getting smaller and smaller and smaller for a big group of people in this country, and it's terrifying.
Yep. Yes, I agree. It really is. And you mentioned that your older son is like her biggest advocate and the one who is more nervous. And that's how my older daughter is. Like, she's the same. And like I said, he'll come home from school and he won't say a word to me. And she'll find me when we have a quiet moment later and be like, Mom, you need to talk to him. This happened today. And she's the one who's watching out for him. She is the one who, if I gave the word tomorrow, like, let's go, she'd be packing the house before anyone had a chance to do anything. Like, she's his warrior for sure. I mean, I am too, but she is absolutely in his corner. And so I guess bouncing back to that support system, I guess he has a really, really, really great ally in her, and I'm grateful that he has her as a sister. I hope he is too. I think he is. I think he knows.
You both sound like you've done a lot to help support your kids and be the right person to be able to have and raise his kids. Is there anything that you wish you would have done differently now knowing that your child is LGBT?
Not for me.
No. I think that same thing. I think he's lucky he was born into my family. And actually, like, yeah, no, I feel good about it. I mean, there's probably been times where I could have spoken up more quickly, or, you know, there's times where I could have maybe not said the wrong, I'm sure I've said the wrong thing to him once or twice. And he usually will call me on it if I do say the wrong thing to him. And I've explained to him, you know, that, hey, hi, this parenting, each day of parenting is brand new for me too. So, you know, you should know me well enough to know that my intentions are good. If I make a mistake, please tell me. I'm happy to correct it. So no, really, I feel like I've done the best I can with what I've been given, for sure.
Yeah, and same here. I mean, I've questioned whether or not I should have moved farther. Like when we moved here within the same state, I've questioned whether I should have left the state and gone to a safer state that wasn't conservative. But I do think the place we came was really good. The schools have been great here. The community we've found has been really, really good. And so I'm hoping that things don't get dramatically worse over the next few months. Like I know that the Supreme Court case on the Tennessee case about the transgender medical care is going to come out over the next few months, which was decided before Trump took office, but we don't know what the decision was. So we'll see what that is. And that will be binding in our state as well against the law that's here. And so we'll find out what that does. And I have a feeling that the Trump administration is already gearing up to try to come against it. If it comes out against them, but we'll see what happens. Yeah. That's the only change that I might make is like going further than I did. But so far it seems like it's been a good move that we've made here, and the kids seem happy. And we've had really good support that we found here in the Unitarian church that we found in this place as well, which that's another, just that across the nation, that's another great place for, you know, LGBTQ people. The Unitarian Universalist place has been really good, and they've got it's been a great place for my child to make connections as well. Even though none of those people know that she's trans, she knows that those are people that are open and affirming with her if they did know. And so like she feels comfortable with those kids, and it's been good for her to make some connections there. And then she knows some people at school.
And I feel lucky. I'll say this, listening to you talking, I mean, we have very different situations, right? I'm just concerned about my child getting to love who he wants to love. And I'm just concerned about him having a future that he chooses to have with the person he chooses to have it with. And I feel like for you, you have a lot more at stake. I feel like, you know, you've got medical care at stake for you. And I mean, your child's complete identity is at risk. And I don't feel that for mine. I mean, I do, but not to the extent that I feel like you do. So, gosh, best of luck to you. I hope whatever comes out of Tennessee, I'm not optimistic, but whatever comes out of Tennessee is great. But gosh, I mean, you know, and we talk about this, and I feel like mine are so much lighter. Our issues over here are so much lighter. He goes to school. He's who he is. I, you know, for the most part, I feel like he's fairly safe, even though we're in a very conservative space. He gets talked to, he gets called names. That's it, you know? And I mean, it could escalate, but let's cross our fingers it doesn't. And I think it's a heavier situation for you. There's a lot more at stake for you.
What do you think is the best or most rewarding part about having an LGBT child?
Well, I'll start. He's the freaking coolest kid I've ever met. And that's part of it too, is like all these kids that are walking in the hallway and calling him names and saying things to him. My warrior wants to go up and be like, get to know him, spend an hour with him. He's really fun and he's really cool and he's got some really great ideas and some really great personality traits. He's just the coolest kid. And so for me, the best part of it is just, and there are parents out there who don't accept their children for who they are, and they don't accept these amazing humans, and they don't get to know these amazing humans. And I'm so blessed that I just get to know him, that I just get to have him in my everyday life, and that I am the right person for him to feel comfortable enough around to get to know him, you know? And so that's it for me, is just that we have a great relationship and we will continue to have a great relationship. And there are parents out there who are just not at that place with their children because they can't accept their children for who they are.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I'm lucky that I have my trans daughter, because I otherwise I would have had all boys. And I don't know, like, I still think maybe she would have been my best friend still, even if she was a boy, because we were always really close. But like, she is like, just like, we are so close. Like, we really are. And having this opportunity to spend so much time together, especially now that we have to go out of state for her care. Like, we spend a lot of time together anyway, but we now are forced to spend more time together, and we get to, and so also because we have to go out of state, I try to make it more fun. So like, last time we went out of state for something, like, we went out of state because we were prepping for, we were doomsday prepping. So we knew that, like, we didn't know what was going to happen when Trump took office. And so we'd been planning with the doctor for, well, we are going to do our best to be ready. So we went in December and got a brand new implant put in her arm, that it'll last for 2 years. That's the best we could do, because it's the longest it'll last. After that, we'll have to figure out what to do if the law has changed and we can't get a new one put in. But like, that was the best we could do. And so we waited until the last minute, got one put in. But then at the same time, like, we went over and we went like and saw like Wicked. And so like, we made a day of it and went to like a fancy mall and like did a whole bunch of fun stuff. Right. And so like, we try to have like bonus fun time together, even when we're doing like other stuff that's annoying. We have to. And also, like, even the stupid law that got passed that means we can't have it in our own state, we also got like maybe the coolest, gayest doctor ever. Like, I don't know how gay he is, but he seems really gay and cool. And like, the first time we ever met him, he like gave us all these paintings from the P flag, like, of Wisconsin or something. I don't even know how, because it's not even the state that he was in, but he had all these paintings that had been donated for patients. And so he let us pick some paintings to take home. And like, he was so cool and he was the nicest. And so like, we did get a bonus of having like this new relationship with this new doctor who like has really helped us to plan for this future, that whatever that's going to look like. So we did get some bonuses from these stupid laws that have been passed. And so we do like to find the bright side to things. And I think like just spending time with my daughter, like, we do have a good time wherever we go, no matter what is happening. So I don't know, but I think that we probably would have had that no matter what, because we're just cool people. Whether she was either, we probably would have still had that relationship, but yeah.
Well, I think far too often it's the horror stories that we hear about, and I just want both of you to know how extraordinary you are, and your kids are indeed lucky to have you, and I just appreciate you.
The luck is mine. I'm lucky to have him. So,
yeah, agreed.
What advice would you have to other parents that have LGBT children?
I mean, if you haven't figured it out so far, it's just love and accept them for who they are. Be their soft place to land. Be the person who protects them. You shouldn't be the one that's bullying them on top of everybody else that they might come across in their life. You shouldn't be the one who's making things harder for them. You should be the one helping them find their path and making things easier for them, and being the person that they can come to no matter what the problem is. And so just build that relationship with your child. Love them for who they are. No expectations.
And also cut off the toxic people. If there are people in your ear telling you to treat them poorly, get rid of those people. Like, I was ready to cut people off. Like, I thought for sure my grandparents were going to be like not having any of it. And so I was ready to be done. And then all of us, here comes a letter from my grandmother, Miss Mina, blah, blah, blah. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. Like, they just 100% accepted it. No questions asked. So I was like, all right, this is like miracles. But if there are people who are in your ear trying to tell you otherwise, just get rid of them and get some new support. Go to the Unitarian church in your area. Go find another open and affirming church. Find some people that will support you and who will support your kid, because they are out there. Go find the P flag. So that's Parents and Friends of Lesbian and Gays is what P flag stands for. Go find other transgender support groups they're definitely out there. Find some people that can be part of your village, because it definitely takes a village, but you can get support. And even if you got to go to the internet, take to the internets.
I think it's a lovely place to leave it. Thank you.
Yeah.
You want to take a break?
Yeah, let's take a break.
Great. Let's take a break. Okay, now are we back?
We're back.
We're back.
We're going to do our Gayest and Straightest.
We're going to do our Gayest and Straightest, but first we're going to let you all talk about socials and whatnot. But April 1st, we're not going to give contact information for you because, do you want to fill us in?
Yes. So my child is not out in her school where she is. When we moved here, she decided not to come out for safety reasons, which I 100% agree with. Who knows where this administration is going and whether they'll be paying people to out their transgender neighbors. So I've been using fake name for myself and for my child on this podcast, and won't be sharing my cool socials. But you can maybe find me in a mysterious way through the ether.
Yeah. And Erin, where can people find out more about you, your podcast, what you're up to? Tell us all the things.
So my podcast is all about Disneyland. So if you are a Disneyland fan and you want a podcast to listen to, I co-host it with a friend of mine. We do new episodes. Well, we just changed our schedule every Monday. It's called Rope Drop and Park Hop. And yeah, we've done it for a few years. It's like our little passion project on the side of real life, and it's a lot of fun. So come on over if you listen to podcasts and you like Disneyland. And we do a little more than Disneyland too, but mostly Disneyland.
That's awesome.
Excellent. Well,
Yeah.
our website is gayishpodcast.com.
We're on social media at Gayish Podcast.
Our hotline, where you can send us text messages or leave us voicemails, is 585-5-GAYISH. That's 585-542-9474. Standard rate supply.
Our email is gayishpodcast@gmail.com.
And our physical mailing address is Post Office Box 19882, Seattle, Washington, 98109. We're going to do our Gayest and Straightest in just a second. But first, buy our book. Our book is still for sale, everybody. Happy Pride. Buy more books, I guess. It's gayishpodcast.com/book. And also, there's still availability for the cruise. We're having a cruise in February of 2027 in conjunction with the Derek and Romaine podcast. It's a $250 deposit to reserve your spot. gayishpodcast.com/cruise for more information. Gayest and Straightest?
Yeah, let's go.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure, I'll go.
Okay.
My gayest is eating Lucky Charms. It just felt gay.
That rainbow is going to make you gayer.
That rainbow definitely made me gayer. All those mallows. My straightest is I didn't have much straight, so I drank cider instead of drinking wine. Like I bought cider for myself. Great. Usually, if I'm out at this grocery store, I'm buying wine. So the fact that I bought cider is as straight as I could come up with this week.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. How about you?
Well, the gayest thing about me this week was when we had Chris Bola from the wine episode was over, and he brought a bunch of wine, drinking white wine, and actually I liked it.
Oh, you're a convert.
I liked the white wine. This particular white wine, Kyle, don't get crazy. And let's see. Then the straightest thing about me this week, I don't know why it feels like the straightest thing, but A.E. Coleman gave us a bunch of mead when we were in Dallas for the live show, and I drank all the mead.
I love that 3 of those 4 things were about alcohol. That's
right.
Great.
April, how about you?
Okay, the gayest thing about me, well, this week and most weeks, or one of the gayest things, is I wear super gay socks all the time to work. They're very rainbow colored, and I often mismatch them on purpose because I love to. There's many gay things about me, actually. And then I'm really having a hard time thinking of a straight thing about me, so I came up with, I drink diet lemonade. That's the straight thing about me.
I love it. That's fantastic. Erin, how about you? Bring us home.
So I actually asked Asher to help me on this one because I was like, what do I do that's gay? I don't even know. What is gay and what is straight? And he told me that some of his friends think it's really suspicious that my podcast partner and I go to Disneyland so frequently, just the 2 of us.
Oh.
Apparently the gayest thing I do is take trips with one of my friends to Disney frequently. And the straightest thing I do, I drive a Toyota.
That's great. I love it.
That's perfect.
Well, April and Erin, thank you again so much for being here and being such awesome parents to your queer kids. And we really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you again for having us.
Thanks for having us.
And I also want to thank our super gap bridgers. Thank you to Locomotive, Simon Srirachi, Kaylee Adams, Kid Oliver, Kobe Gordon, Squaggle, Pip, Andrew Bugby, William Bryant, John Crowley, Yost Osel, Jonathan Montañez, Forrest Nail, Steve Douglas, Explosive Lasagna, Michael Covington, Thomas B, Dusty Sands, A. Coleman, Chris Cacciatorians, Jerome York, and Cian and Javi. Thank you for your support.
Thank you for your money. That's it. This has been Gayish from the Chris Cacciatorian Studios. I'm Mike Johnson.
I'm Kyle Getz. Until next week, be butch, be fabulous, be you.
See you next week.
See ya.